tonight. We glorify you. We thank you for this day that you've watched over us and kept us. Father, we ask you and we invite you into this service tonight to have your way to touch from heart to heart and from breast to breast. We ask your blessing upon the leaders of this nation, the leaders of this community. Have your way that everything we do and say tonight will bring you glory and honor. For we ask it in the name of Jesus Christ we pray, and we say amen.
Amen. Hello again, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Emmanuel Wilkerson, and I welcome you to our first PottsTOWN Talks, first community forum. The mission of our group is to bring collaboration of many generations of PottsTOWN citizens, from the youth, the older citizens of PottsTOWN, and our community leaders to bring awareness, education, and to rebuild this town. Because we have a saying in the PottsTOWN School District that says, "We are PottsTOWN." And I am proud to be from PottsTOWN. So we are going to rebuild this town, and we're going to use those words and show the next generation, my generation, what it means to be from PottsTOWN. Amen. So I thank you all for coming out today, because we all in our hearts love PottsTOWN. And that's what we're here for, to rebuild PottsTOWN so it can be a beacon for the rest of the nation to lead us out of these dark days. So I thank you all for coming. So today I'm very excited. We have a lot of community leaders, a lot of members from State Rep's office, Congressman Costello's office, and a lot of other organizations here represented. Today, the topics that I selected for this meeting, after going through my mind saying, I need to take what's going on in our nation, our community, and put it in perspective of the youth, is because this meeting is about the youth. The youth is now coming to you, asking you, saying, it's going to be our time soon, so we need to rebuild this town. So the topics we selected today were social diversity, the future of PottsTOWN, and how does the youth play a role in the future. So today, the forum is going to be set up where you'll see the agenda right before you. There's some back there if you didn't get any. It will be set up in a way where I'll put out questions out there, and I ask that you give your feedback, because I'll take it down. You have community leaders here, and we want to hear from you on the different topics, because these are important topics. From social diversity, what's all going on in our nation now, when we have mothers burying their children, children burying their fathers because they wear a blue uniform, or our children being wrongfully incarcerated. These are issues that are going on in our country right now, and we're a part of the American country, so it will come down into our communities. So I'm asking every one of you to join me in finding a solution to these problems so we can create a better tomorrow. That's what it's all about. Is whatever, I always say, whatever you do great today will build an even stronger foundation for tomorrow. So I'm asking you to participate. Let your voices be heard, because it says in the Constitution, we the people. So it is up to we the people to find a solution to fix this nation. So I ask you today. Our first topic on the agenda is social diversity. Social diversity has left a huge gap in our generation and in many ethnic groups. We need to find a solution to social division. It's because every man is equal. We need to find a solution to social division. It's because, matter not that we say and we put a Band-Aid over things, no, it creeps down and it gets even deeper. So let's find a solution for social division. Today I ask you, how, as a community, can we solve social division? How can we solve social division? How can we be a beacon and solve social division? Anybody have any thoughts on that? On how we can solve social division?
How are you defining it?
Social division, meaning equal opportunities. Meaning, doesn't matter what color your skin is, you are same as the person next to you. Fair education, where we should be as funded just as well as the richer school districts down the road, and that we should take pride in who we are. That's what I mean, Mr. Brown. Does anyone want to speak on that topic of what is social division? how can we solve it?
Are you saying gender differences, race differences?
All that, all of how can we solve social division? What's going on in the country now? Yes, ma'am.
I'm Valerie Jackson. I'm with Harris Family Ministries, Peak, Bethel AME Church, and Toastmasters, Bethel AME, PottsTOWN Toastmasters. One of the ways that social division can be addressed is by people speaking out. Oftentimes people will speak in private groups. We'll talk about these social injustices that we see. But when it comes to forums such as this, council meetings, school board meetings, approaching your legislation, we get quiet, we get silent. We're afraid to speak out. We don't want to be that first person to take a stand. So that is something that really needs to change here. We can start with petitions. We can start with doing marches. It's worked in the past. It can work again. It also can start with, if you want to do small groups where you see things that need to be changed. One example, in PottsTOWN School District in the Peak Department, we have what's called a Family Advisory Committee. Some of those members are here. That committee was formed as a result of wanting to make a change in the district. How can we bridge the gap between the families and the communities? That committee was formed, and that committee has worked arduously to bring about changes in the district, such as literacy nights, and are in the process of starting math nights. That's just one small example where you can start off. And what those things do are bring about then educational equality. When we see that we're not fairly funded, demand to be properly funded. We don't have to sit back because we're a town who's impoverished, because we're a town where industry has left. That does not mean that our children are not as important as children anywhere else.
I do agree with that. And you did touch on basis of how we're doing it within the district, but how can we do that in the community? Yes, ma'am.
Since you started with prayer, and since a movement of racial equality started in church, and since that is the most segregated day of the week, I think that church sharing, like, we have to understand that we're the same. As long as we think it's them and us, there'll never be any unity. And the only way that you can overcome that is for us to get to know one another. There have to be opportunities made for us to socialize and interact so that we can see that we're not that different. You know, I have a saying that I've been saying that, yes, God is a racist because he cares about the human race. We all have one origin. Our ethnicities are different, but our origin is the same. And once that we understand that it's not us and them, and that whatever affects you affects me, that's the only way that we can find that commonality. And one of the ways that we should be able to do it, and the one unified front, should be the people that say they serve the same God, and that should be in church. So why don't we establish just people visiting churches? Just take your whole church and go to a different church that you've never been to before, of a different ethnic group, and fellowship, and get to know one another. I think that's how you change the mindset of people, because once they get to interact and talk with people and find out, hey, you're not as different from me, because I bleed, I get hungry, I get cold, I need a place to live. We all share more things the same than we do different, and all we seem to focus on are the differences.
I like what she said there. She said we need to find a common goal. And that's what we need to find in this world, is a common goal. And that's how we will solve our problems, is when we meet each other somewhere. I'm actually your youngest elected official, but I came and I wanted to bring the community, and I was going to meet the community where they are. I wasn't going to ask you to come to a so-and-so meeting, a board meeting, a council meeting. I was going to ask you to come. I was going to come to you. And that's what I believe in. It's about coming to you. You elected me, and I'm going to come listen to you. That's my duty, and that's what I'm going to do. And when she said common goal, that's why I want to move into one of the most powerful topics for, as a minority youth, is law enforcement interaction with our youth. That is one of the touchiest topics right now, is because you can see there's mothers bearing their children at a very young age. You have children bearing their own parents because they wore a badge. We need to solve these issues. It's because I'm telling you now, speaking on behalf of my generation saying this needs to be solved is because we need to prepare for the future. And how can we do that? How can we educate our law enforcement officers and our youth to interact together? Yes, sir.
I want to back up to your first question
Yes, sir.
about social
Division.
division. I don't think I need that. John Bennett, I'm new to PottsTOWN, but I'm not new to the earth. But you said something about social division. And we prayed, this is a public forum, we prayed a Christian prayer tonight. That's great. But PottsTOWN's not just Christian. I see women in burqas. We have a synagogue. I'm sure we've got people that don't have any religious faith. They all need to be represented too. Because they're all in this community. And where'd she go? Well, her idea was great, but you got to be prepared to go to the synagogue. You got to be prepared to go to the Catholic Church. You got to be prepared to go to the Islamic temple. Or So, and unfortunately, we're not going to solve it tonight.
No.
My boss has a good saying, and it's an old saying, but it's new to me. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
And that's what it's all about.
And so, just a thought about that. PottsTOWN is diverse.
Mm-hmm.
And, if you want to affect change, then you need to embrace everyone.
And then that's what it was all about. And that's why it says community forum to welcome everyone. And that's what it's all about. It won't happen here. You said that you have to take one little bite at a time. That's what I'm looking to do. But my main goal to do this is to bring my generation aboard. Is because sooner or later we will be the next presidents. We will be the next governors. We will be the next CEOs. That's what this is all about, is to prepare my generation to take the next step with you. That's all it's about. We all have our pieces to rebuild this town. Now we have to put the pieces together. Yes, sir.
I like what I'm hearing. I can speak from experience. My name is Ralph Bainbridge. I live in this town over 40 years. I'm quite happy where I'm at. I live out in the north end of town. I live on Diamond Street, 276 exactly. For the past 5 years, I've worked with others in this community and also from out of the community to host an event called the PottsTOWN Iron Horse Show. I have the shirt on. The mayor knows. The mayor's come out to our breakfast down at the Limerick Diner. Do you know, when I host that event here in town, there's a lot of businesses don't even stay open. They could reap a benefit by outsiders coming into this town to see the motorcycles on the street, but the businesses don't stay open. Is that my fault? The town needs to wake up. You got to change. Look at Phoenixville. Every first Saturday of the month they have First Friday, I'm sorry. And that's a big success. That was another booming steel town. That's why I called this event the Iron Horse Show, because PottsTOWN was an iron town. You had flags. You had Mrs. Smith's. You had any other industry that's gone and left. We have new industries and new businesses coming in. One of the most successful businesses in this town is right up the street, the old Levitt's building. We see renovation going on today over on Beach and Evans Street. I remember when that was the booming warehouse outlet for Levitt's. I lived in town. I'm from town. I've been here, I'm 68 years old. All but 5 years of my life has been in this local area. It can be redone. We got to rethink. We can't be afraid of change.
Amen.
And you're right on track when you go into the synagogue and the Catholic Church and this church and that church. If we worship one God, What difference does it make? I'm upset because there's factions even in the motorcycle world. Because there's factions all over the place. You got wounded warriors, you got this group and that group for the vets. Why can't we get unified? Why can't we come together? Why can't we tell our elected officials? I've been to council meetings and I see 3 times more people here than go to a council meeting. And everybody screams and hollers that PottsTOWN's no good. Wake up, people. I said my piece. Thank you.
Great point of view. And like I said, there's all these pieces and we need to put them together. And so once again, I'm going to ask you, let's put the pieces back together to rebuild PottsTOWN. Ms. Wiener.
Mrs. Wiener.
Mrs. Wiener.
I love you, Emmanuel. First of all, I'm going to thank you, Emmanuel, for doing this. Emmanuel is a wonderful person. I met him, probably about 2 years ago. This guy is going places, and that's all I will say. I'm just so happy you're willing to lead us tonight. I will say this. We've been talking about what we are going to do at our ages. Those of us that are grown up, those of us who grew up in PottsTOWN, we have seen how wonderful this town used to be. And it can be that great again. But my comment is we should be concentrating on the youth of this town. We should be catching the kids, grades, not kindergarten. We should be going out there for the 3 and 4-year-olds. We need to do more for those kids so that they can understand the problem that we have in this town with diversity. Now, serving on the school board, I know the wonderful things that have been done through Dr. Sparagona, who is here tonight, and the wonderful program that Peak presents. But for those of us that are coming here tonight, we need to think and concentrate on those young children who still have not seen and understood the situations that we incur here in town. I have a 5-year-old granddaughter. Last week, we were crossing train tracks in Norristown, and we waited for this woman to cross, and my granddaughter said, that brown woman is having a problem getting across the street. She doesn't look in terms of the different races. All she knew was that woman was brown. She is at that age yet that she has not been, what should we say, harmed, tarnished by the things that have happened to those people at our age. My thought is we need to get into the minds of the 3-year-olds, the 4-year-olds, before it's too late. That's where it's going to start. And that's perhaps where all the problems will end. So I'm not saying it can be solved here at our age. I'm not saying it can't be. But I'm saying we need to deal with the youth before they get tarnished by the thoughts that are happening. Thank you.
There was a saying in my house is that it takes a community to raise a kid. So that's why I'm asking the community to come together and help raise our youth to build a stronger PottsTOWN. Yes, sir.
I think the word choices that were used between division and diversity as common ground, 2 words meaning the same, is something that needs to be divided. Diversity has an opportunity to create uniqueness, create ingenuity, create an environment where you can still have unity in diversity. People that are diverse are not going to be willing to sacrifice that which makes them unique. And there needs to be a celebration of diversity, not division, of diversity. And be able to accept people for where there is a difference. And be able to let people be themselves, to be their unique expression. And that happens in the family first. You want to reach the children, you want to reach that which is young, you got to go through the family. Mindsets are created through the family. And the child's environment, yes, it does help create things within them. They're still accountable for where they go, but it's the family that's going to be able to create the strength and the diversity to be unique, to be free, to be able to go forward and enjoy the diversity and still accept one another in unity.
Thank you, sir.
John Johnson, born and raised in PottsTOWN. And like the man said, it starts at home, and that's how I feel the same way. We have to start teaching our kids at home to show respect, have manners.
Right.
We have to discipline these kids when we're at home. We can't just be we as parents can't be friends with our kids. We have to be the parents. And that's how I feel. You know, I volunteer, I coach and stuff like that. And I see a lot of kids, they come from single family homes and, you know, the father's not involved. And I think we as men, young men like I'm not that young, but as young men, we have to start standing up and showing these kids. I mean, my dad was there. He was always there for me. And I knew Johnny, Robert, you know, they're good people. And we as men, we have to start leading these young men, these elementary kids, middle school kids, high school kids. We got to start teaching these kids to show respect. There's no respect. There's, you know, it's just, I don't know, it's just crazy. But I think we have to start it at home first. And we as men, we got to start being father figures and being that role model for our kids. Thank you.
Good work. Ms. Beard.
So, like John, I'm a lifelong PottsTOWN resident. I was here with flags and dolars. My father worked at flags his entire life. My brothers worked at dolars. One of the things that we're all saying is it's okay to be culturally diverse. Most places in the United States are going to be culturally diverse, right? So you're celebrating each other's culture, and in celebrating each other's culture, you're learning more about each other. That provides for an understanding and a compassion. It's not about you, it should be prideful, or have some sort of pride in where you come from. Everyone should have pride in where they come from. But that's not to say that you step on anyone else because they come from a different place. I think a cultural diversity curriculum in our town is needed. We're one of the most culturally diverse towns around us. I grew up on Beach Street, right by the Hill School. We had a very culturally diverse neighborhood. I live on a culturally diverse block. I think that we focus too much on the negatives of each other's culture instead of focusing on the positives of each other's culture, because there's negatives in every culture, right? So another thing with us going to something that's going to promote our town and promote our youth and give them something that we should be setting them up for success. Our children could be the next leaders and will be the next leaders of not just our town, but our country. We need to prepare them and set them up for success instead of expecting that they will just be subpar. We have to give them the tools that they need to excel. Having something in our town as simple as First Friday is a necessity, really, because even in towns where it's not impoverished, they have First Fridays where they come together. I work in a town where I pass through Skippack. Skippack has First Fridays, and it's beautiful. People are walking out, they're purchasing, they're spending money on the vendors in that locality. Right? That's not an impoverished area. Phoenixville's doing the same thing. They were an impoverished area. We can't look at it that we need to set something up because we're impoverished, because everyone sees us as impoverished. We have to look at it as we're setting up a good business model. This is a model that even the townships that have flourishing tax bases are utilizing. We have to realize that we have to use the vehicles that are there, that work. There's no sense in recreating the wheel. We'll just re-spin our wheels over and over again trying to recreate what we already know is working. It's working in all of those other townships, whether they started out with a dwindling tax base or whether their tax base was very at the top of one of the levels in the United States. We have to start it. We have to, and it's a little frustrating, right? And it's scary to think, what steps do we have to do? Who's going to do what? start thinking of those things, and then everyone comes out to a meeting, a forum. We all put our ideas out there. We all vent about what we think is wrong, but we need to come up with solutions. We know what's wrong. Most of us have lived here our entire lives. We know what's broken. Our tax base is broken, right? When you have money problems in a marital home, what happens? It's a divide, right? It causes divorce. Money problems cause divorces. Money problems cause friction in townships. It's the same thing. You part ways because the wealthy continue to get wealthier and the poor continue to get poorer, and then they become hostile against each other. It's the same thing that happens in a marital household, right? So if we come up with some solutions, viable solutions, start out with smaller level things that we can attain. Set a small limit for ourselves that we can hit, and have notches at each one of those items. You start small. You don't start big. You start small, and then you grow. Sometimes you grow rather quickly. Sometimes it takes a while, but there's still growth. And as long as we're moving consistently, we have a growth pattern. We're going to come out better on the other side than how we started. I assure you. It takes time out of your schedule, a little bit. You support vendors. They're local. Support the grocers. They're local. Support what's going on in your locality, where we live. Spend your money where we live, right? Start out small. This forum is something small, but we need to come up with viable solutions